Hey, what do you know? We're back. This is part three of the medicine bag. Hopefully, you've watched parts one and two. If you do want to read the short story on your own, there are some copies on the back table. But if not, you can just sit back and I'll read it to you and talk about some of the discussions that we should have as we're reading through this. So we've read the first 25 paragraphs. Hopefully, you've completed the first couple questions. You could do that. Let me screen share here. So we are in Google Classroom right now. So I'm recording Medicine Bag Part 3. It's not there yet. It will be after I finish recording and upload it. But the very first post you'll see, remember under classwork, stream doesn't really work for us, but under classwork will be this Google form. And yesterday you could have filled out the first two questions already. We know the answers to these two questions, which leaves four more. Okay. Why does Grandpa want Martin to have the medicine bag? We have previewed these questions already. You can take a look at part three if you want to, or pause the video if you're watching on your own. I did get a couple questions about this yesterday. A 3-sentence summary of the medicine bag. Basically, you want a sentence that talks about the beginning, another one that talks about the middle, and another one that talks about the end. That's what I would do for a 3-sentence summary. So that first sentence, so I think we've read, that's the first part we read, the first 25 paragraphs. You could say something like the main character's grandfather visited his home in Iowa unexpectedly. That's a pretty good start right there. Maybe I want to mention how, because him being a Lakota Indian is pretty important. I should probably put that as my first sentence too. The main character's grandfather, a Lakota that's right, Indian. My spelling, you can tell it's not my intro. Isn't that correct? Or does it have to be capitalized? Because it has to be capitalized. Visited how about this? Visited the main character's grandfather, a Lakota Indian, visited his house in Iowa all the way from, do you remember the state? I think it's South Dakota. I think a pretty good first sentence. You do not have to use this. Maybe you can come up with something better, but let's just read it to make sure it's right. The main character's grandfather, a Lakota Indian, visited. Should I put the name of the main character? Martin's house in Iowa, all the way from South Dakota unexpectedly. I mean, we could workshop that a little bit. It's not perfect, but not a bad start there. And then please fill out these right here. Baby Killer Unicorn, should you? Paper Towns, do you like? All right, the next thing here, it's going to be a little tricky. I need to stop sharing that screen and then get onto the medicine bag. It's just going to take me a second. Hang on. Not too long. Reader. Boom. Right there. Okay, so we've read the first 25 paragraphs. I highlighted in pink so I wouldn't forget. And if you remember where we left off, the grandpa, he wasn't looking so good. I don't think we've ever been told exactly how old he is. We just know that Martin is he's older than his sister, who's 10. So I think Martin might be about, I'm assuming 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there. It seemed like he was in middle school. And so his great grandfather, what do you think, 80, maybe 90? maybe 70, maybe, depending on how old he was when he had his own children. But I think 80 is an okay assumption. He might be 80. So we still don't know how this guy got here. Mom came back with a basin of water. The doctors think Grandpa may be suffering from heat exhaustion, she explained as she bathed Grandpa's face. Mom gave a big sigh. Oh, Hen, Martin. Again, that seems like the Lakota language. Maybe it's like son or something like that. Not sure, but that's what she's calling Martin. How do you suppose he got here? 27. We found out after the doctor's visit. Grandpa was angrily sitting up in bed while Mom tried to feed him some soup. Tonight, you let Marie feed you, Grandpa, said my dad, who had gotten home from work. Seems like Marie might be the mom's name. You're not really sick, he said as he gently pushed Grandpa back against the pillows. The doctor thinks you just got too tired and hot after your long trip. I mean, but the man is old, right? The man is old. Not sick, but he's definitely tired. I mean, he didn't fake that passing out, did he? Grandpa relaxed, and in between sips of soup, he told us of his journey. Soon after we visited him, Grandpa decided that he would like to see where his only living descendants lived and what our home was like. Besides, he admitted sheepishly, he was lonesome after we left. Sheepishly, since that's underlined, I guess they're thinking maybe you don't know that. Just means like he's embarrassed. He admitted sheepishly. I knew that everybody felt as guilty as I did, especially Mom. Mom was all Grandpa had left. So even after she married my dad, who's not an Indian, and after Cheryl and I were born, Mom made sure that every summer we spent a week with Grandpa. Top of 31. I never thought that Grandpa would be lonely after our visits, and none of us noticed how old and weak he had become. I think there's a typo, right? He had become. I think there was a typo in the last thing we read yesterday, too. But Grandpa knew, so he came to us. He had ridden on buses for 2.5 days. So there we finally are told how he got there. Boom. Let's underline it. Yeah, I like the underline better. When he arrived in the city, tired and stiff from sitting for so long, he set out walking to find us. He had stopped to rest on the steps of some buildings downtown, and a policeman found him. The officer took Grandpa to the city bus stop, waited until the bus came, and then told the driver to let Grandpa out at Bellevue Drive. Must be sort of close to where they live. After Grandpa got off the bus, he started walking again, but he couldn't see the house numbers on the other side when he walked on the sidewalk, so he walked in the middle of the street. That's when all the little kids and dogs followed him, and that's when our main character, Martin, saw him. Therefore, we saw him. I knew everybody felt as bad as I did, yet I was so proud of this 86-year-old man. So we finally found out how old this guy is. 86-year-old man who had never been away from the reservation, but who had the courage to travel so far alone. You found the money in my boots? He asked Mom. Martin did, she answered, and then scolded. Grandpa, you shouldn't have carried so much money. What if someone had stolen it from you? Grandpa laughed. I would have known if anyone tried to take the boots off my feet. The money is what I've saved for a long time, $100 for my funeral. But you take it now to buy groceries so that I won't be a burden to you while I'm here. All right, so that's a little bit sad. And that was kind of the first thing I thought of when this man had tons of money stuffed into his boots. It almost seemed like, to me, and I could be assuming too much, but I just want to let you know what I was thinking as I was reading this, that he was actually coming to their house to kind of die, to kind of say his final goodbye. Maybe he took his whole life savings with him. But you can take it now to buy groceries, so I won't be a burden to you while I'm here. That won't be necessary, Grandpa, Dad said. We are honored to have you with us. You'll never be a burden. I'm only sorry that we never thought to bring you home with us this summer and spare you the discomfort of a long bus trip. Grandpa was pleased. Thank you, he answered, but don't feel bad that you didn't bring me with you, for I would not have come then. It was not time. He said this in such a way that no one could argue with him. To Grandpa and the Lakota, he once told me, a thing would be done when it was the right time to do it. And that's the way it was. So maybe a little advice there from an older person. I'm always trying to look for theme as I'm reading. That's just, I think, what English teachers do. That might be something of a theme. Ooh, we have a picture. There was a mention in one of the classes a couple days ago. I think it was like, hey, it would be nice if we had some pictures every once in a while. Well, I don't know if this is a great picture, but we get a pair of cowboy boots. They look not that old. They look kind of in the middle. I bet if we click on this, can we make it bigger? No. All right. Paragraph 39. Also, Grandpa went on looking at me. I have come because it is soon time for Martin to have the medicine bag. All right, symbolism, some questions on the sheet about medicine bag. We all knew what that meant. Grandpa thought he was going to die, and he had to follow the tradition of his family to pass the medicine bag along with its history to the oldest male child. I'm going to highlight that. That might be important. Let's circle it. That's kind of weird. But anyways, we'll keep that there. So Lakota tradition, medicine bag, oldest male child, could be important there. Even though the boy, he said, still looking at me, doesn't have an Indian name, the medicine bag will be his. I didn't know what to say. I had the same hot and cold feeling that I had when I first saw Grandpa on the street. The medicine bag was the dirty leather pouch I'd found around his neck. I could never wear it, I almost said aloud. I thought of having my friends see it in gym class or at the swimming pool and could imagine the smart things they would say. But I just swallowed hard, took a step forward toward the bed. I knew I would have to take it. So again, there's that what we've been kind of talking about here with Red Roses. And this one is that the main characters are really concerned, like, most of us, like a lot of people in middle school and high school, is that they're very concerned about what others would think about them. Not what they would think about themselves, but what others would think. So he wouldn't want to have to carry around that leather pouch. Be a little strange. Nobody else is doing that. But Grandpa was tired. Not now, Martin, he said, waving his hand in dismissal. It's not time. Now I will go to sleep. Jeez. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but every time I think about really old people going to sleep, I think, oh no, are they going to wake up again? How old was he? He was, I forgot, 80 something. Was it 82? 86. 86. So not young, not a spring chicken, as we might say. Let's see. Kind of lost my place here. If we were in class together, people would be screaming at me. Hey, wait. It's top of paragraph 44. So that's how Grandpa came to be with us for 2 months. So maybe a little fast forwarding. Why only 2 months? Does he go back to the reservation? That's what I'm hoping. Does he pass away in the house? My friends kept asking to come see the old man, but I put them off. I told myself that I didn't want them laughing at Grandpa. But even as I made excuses, I knew it wasn't Grandpa I was afraid they'd laugh at. So who's he afraid they'd laugh at? Of course, him, right? Nothing bothered Cheryl about bringing her friends to see Grandpa. Every day after school started, there'd be a crew of giggling little girls or round-eyed little boys crowded around the old man on the porch, where he'd gotten in the habit of sitting every afternoon. Grandpa smiled in his gentle way and patiently answered their questions, or he'd tell them stories of brave warriors, ghosts, and animals, and the kids listened in awed silence. Those little guys thought Grandpa was great. And again, we have what I introduced yesterday, that juxtaposition where you have two opposites side by side, so their differences would be even more accentuated, I guess we'd say. So you have Martin in middle school, Cheryl, elementary school. She's like 10. So you can imagine when you're 10, you're more likely to say you like something like, oh, that's very cool. Little kids are innocent. But as you get older, you don't want to be too eager about anything, right? You don't want to be a teacher's pet for sure in middle school. It's kind of the same way, I think, in elementary school. Teacher might be your best friend. Hey, middle school, maybe not as much, right? It's natural. That's what should happen. 47, bring that to the top. Finally, one day after school, my friends came home with me because nothing I said stopped them. We're going to see the great Indian of Bellevue Drive, said Hank, who was supposed to be my best friend. My brother has seen him 3 times, so he ought to be well enough to see us. So must have a little brother that's Cheryl's friend also, this guy, Hank. When we got to my house, Grandpa was sitting on the porch. He had on his red shirt, but today he also wore a fringed leather vest trimmed with beads. All right, if I'm thinking of stereotypical Native American vest with beads, maybe, or a biker, maybe, if I'm really stereotyping. Instead of his usual cowboy boots, he had solidly beaded moccasins on his feet. Of course, he had his old black hat on. He was seldom without it. But it had been brushed, and the feather in the beaded headband was proudly erect, its tip a bright white. His hair lay in silver strands over the red shirt collar. I just stared, as my friends did, and I heard one of them murmur, "Wow." Grandpa looked up, and when his eyes met mine, they twinkled, as if he was laughing inside. So maybe, the old man, Grandpa, maybe he knew that Martin was a little embarrassed or was questioning, why do you never bring your friends around? Cheryl does. And so there's almost a little hint there that he's pretty happy about this. He nodded to me. My face got all hot. I could tell that he had known all along. I was afraid he'd embarrass me in front of my friends. Okay, I don't want to offend the Lakota language. I believe that's how. Huskilus, maybe? Huskilus? But obviously it means boys, right? I would think. He greeted, held out his hand. My buddies passed in single file and shook his hand as I introduced them. They were so polite, I almost laughed. How, Grandpa? And even how do you do, sir? How do you do, sir? Yes. Seems like he was a little intimidated, whatever friend said that. You look fine, Grandpa, I said as the guy sat down. Huh. Yes, he agreed. When I woke up this morning, it seemed the right time to dress in the good clothes. I knew that my grandson would be bringing his friends. Whoa, we don't need to highlight all that. So it goes back to that whole thing we were talking about earlier about like when the time is right? Maybe the old man knew something, so he dressed. You guys want a soda? Or I offered, but no one answered. They were listening to Grandpa as he told how he killed the deer from which his vest was made. Grandpa did most of the talking. I was proud of him and amazed at how respectfully quiet my friends were. Mom had to chase them home at supper time. As they left, they shook Grandpa's hand again and said to me, "Can we come back?" But after they left, Mom said, "No more visitors for a while, Martin. Grandpa won't admit it, but his strength hasn't returned. He likes having company, but it tires him." That evening, Grandpa called me to his room before he went to sleep. "Tomorrow," he said, "when you come home, it'll be time to give you the medicine bag." So that might be a good place for us to stop. I'll highlight that in blue. So there are 70 something pairs. Yeah, so that might be perfect for tomorrow. It'll be Friday, maybe not as long of a lesson or something like that. So of course, if you're watching this on your own, great. If you're watching that with us, probably class is about ready to get over it. Don't forget to start filling out that Google form. Good news, it's not due until next Friday, but we do have a couple other things due. There will be a vocabulary quiz on the Red Roses vocabulary tomorrow, so make sure you study for that tonight. Hopefully you have your vocabulary sheets. I got a bunch of them here. Grade this stuff. Vocabulary sheets are turned in. I'll be passing those back today. You may already have them. So that's it for today. Have a good rest of the day. Adios.